Yeah, it looks like he has secures that expansion again, so he will be getting some more probes. But notice he did expand in the upper left here. So as I mentioned earlier, both players kind of taking their side. Deathrow just pretty much saturating the entire right side of the map. It looks like he has finally taken his natural expansion out at the low ground out in front of his base, which is obviously the first expansion that Broken Rhythm took. But Broken Rhythm once again starting to expand across the left side of the map here. You can see he's taking yet another expansion too. So this definitely switching into a much more macro intensive game, and Deathrow now getting his expansions up and running fully, as is Broken Rhythm. And it looks like we are about to see another large battle here. A pretty good mix of units now from Broken Rhythm. Oh, and throwing down some more great side storms, but there are a lot of siege tanks backing up these infantry units right now. So it looks like he is going to retreat and try to drop some side storms. Oh my goodness. So many side storms going down, taking out a ton of infantry units. And it looks like he does have some medevacs in the mix that are going to be able to heal some of those.
Look at the Zelnaga Storm.
Oh my goodness, so many Zelnaga Storms. But yeah, it looks like that was an insane amount of Side Storm. That is definitely the way you want to use those High Templars. Broken Rhythm making they're taking full advantage rather of the Side Storm capability, and you can see how many infantry units just went down. I'm kind of curious. Oh, he morphed it into a one of them into a Archon here. I'm trying to see how many kills. This one High Templar has 9 kills. Another one with 8, another one with 2, another one with 1, and I'm wondering how many of the ones that he morphed into that Archon had, because he got a lot of infantry kills on those units.
Yeah, definitely. Taking a look at the High Templars, I think one of them has 8, the other one has 9, and right now Deathrow is moving in, going to be using those siege shakes in the back to secure his Nagatoro closer to his bases right now. And we see the power of the Side Storms. It is disallowing Deathrow to push up, because every time his infantry pushes up, he is going to be eaten alive by those Side Storms, and once those siege tanks siege in the back, he can just run away and wait for more reinforcements to attack. Right now, Deathrow looks like he's going to be sieging up at Broken Rhythm Zelnaga Tower. Zelt's going in, and those siege tanks are caught horribly out of position. Storms plus charge lots make quick work of those siege tanks, and Broken Rhythm decisively wins this battle, but Deathrow has more siege tanks siege up in the back. Both players macroing up very heavily. It looks like those siege tanks are just going to be eaten alive by those well-placed siege tanks. Those Marauders and Marines tanking for those Zealots, and Broken Rhythm moving back right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of just massive battles going on across the map, but one thing I do want to start drawing some attention to is that it looks like Broken Rhythm has switched into carrier tech, which is a very, very interesting move. I don't see a whole lot of
has arrived.
Get all the way to carrier. Yeah, so we're going to see carriers on this map, and there is not a whole heck of a lot of anti-air other than a handful of turrets. And I don't know, I'm going to take a look at the units overlay here. It does look like he has 5 Vikings, but only 16 Marines. So those carriers, if he manages to mass up a decent amount of them before he can get any kind of response, and there is, I'm sorry, another huge battle.
Oh, you see that Side Storm?
That was insane Side Storm by the High Templars once again. Oh my goodness, so many units. All those poor infantry units were just trapped on the high ground, and they just got absolutely nailed by that Side Storm. But anyways, what I was saying is that if Broken Rhythm can manage to get out a decent number of carriers before there's a response, then he could actually steamroll Deathrow pretty hard here. But it looks like there are a couple siege tanks that are just sieging up one of Broken Rhythm's expansions, so he is going to lose the economic advantage that he has there. And actually, Deathrow finding the expansion in the upper left here too, which is where Broken Rhythm had placed his fleet beacon. So he is going to be aware that he has mothership and carrier tech available to him.
Yeah, if you look at Deathrow, he's doing some great harassment. Going to be positioning 2 siege tanks on top of the 9 o'clock expansion. Going to take out almost all the probes there and taking out the Nexus. But we also see that Deathrow actually landed 3 Vikings at Broken Rhythm's, oh, I hate these numbers, a further 9 o'clock position, or I think a 10 o'clock position, and going to be taking out a lot of Harvesters before Broken Rhythm has to show his carriers. And it's actually kind of ironic watching carriers kill ground form of Vikings when Vikings are the counter to carriers. Right now, Broken Rhythm, yeah, Broken Rhythm actually moving out, gonna be taking a bit of siege tank fire on the high ground, but those carriers just doing absolute work on those Marauders and Marines. If I were Husky right now, I'd be screaming Storm out of my ass. But right now, those Zealots will be able to take out the siege tanks very quickly, and we see Broken Rhythm's macro getting a little bit out of control. 5,000 minerals. 9,000 gas, but nowhere near, I think, Dalai Lamy with his 10,000 minerals at one point. And Broken Rhythm actually having 3 carriers in play right now. Vikings are actually not that good against carriers because of the long range of the interceptors actually make it very, very difficult for Vikings to counter carriers. And And so we will have to see how how Deathrow does decide to counter these carriers.
Actually, one thing I just noticed is it looks like Deathrow was mining very heavily at the lower right base, and he apparently saw the army of Broken Rhythm moving down there, just immediately lifted off his orbital command and pretty much lost every one of his mining units that he has there. And these carriers are just tearing apart that high ground expansion. It looks like Deathrow moving into position to defend that, but he only has 4 Vikings, which is not going to be enough to take on 5 carriers. It looks like one carrier a little bit out of place. He's going to be able to take that one down, but all of his miners have been taken out of the space for the most part. There's only about 3 or 4 left, I think. So a lot of units being lost here, and the mining capability of Deathrow has been severely crippled. These were his only mining bases, with the exception of the natural just outside of his main base. So if he does not respond in kind and take out some of Broken Rhythm's expansions, or manage to get some of these expansions back and hold them, then he is going to be in very bad shape here. And it looks like Deathrow actually moving into Thor-Tech now, his response to these carriers. And you can see the Thors are decent with dealing with carriers, but you really need Vikings to take those carriers on, because the splash damage of the Thor is not nearly as effective against the carriers because they do not stack as much. And actually Deathrow leaving the game, so he just rage quits, I guess.
Yeah, this is a pretty epic. At the end, actually, Deathrow had 96 harvesters right before Broken Rhythm moved into his bottom right expansion. So 96 harvesters that late into the game with 4 expansions actually takes up a huge chunk of your population. So I don't know if that was the best choice against Deathrow. And also getting those Thors were kind of unwarranted. Thors do very, very little against carriers, actually. They're good against interceptors, but really no one gives a crap about the interceptors. You really need to kill the carriers. And at that point, I think Deathrow needed at least half the cost of Broken Rhythm's carriers in Vikings just to take that on. So Broken Rhythm doing a very sneaky tech switch, kind of winning him the game because Deathrow really did not expect it. I think Deathrow was expecting a more zealot Psystorm the entire game until one of them out macros each other, or his slow siege tank push was successful. Any closing words, okay?
No, nothing other than just thanks for having me on this cast. Definitely check out SC Battlegrounds. It's at youtube.com/SC Battlegrounds. We're going to have a lot more dual casts coming up, and we actually will be dual casting some of the games from the up-and-coming tournament, the GGSC2 Open, which, Elisa, you're actually hosting that tournament with ProLink, correct?
Yeah, we're hosting it with ProLink, and I actually just made the tournament so Broken Rhythm could get some money, because we were always talking about how Broken Rhythm was tournament level play, I think, at least, and so I specifically wanted to come up with a tournament and hopefully get some donators. We actually had $30 in donators from Ambient Replays, a good friend of mine and Top Ace, and so yeah, hopefully Broken Rhythm does well in the tournament. One of the games I'm looking for is actually Broken Rhythm versus Death Count, who is also a very strong Protoss player.
Absolutely. Well, anyways, thanks again for having me on that. Definitely look for those shoutcasts that we do on the SC2 GG Open, and we will see you guys next time.
Yeah, see you guys next time. And SC2 Battlegrounds is on my YouTube page, so check them out. See you guys later.